What if your wife or girlfriend has a fantasy that is pretty kinky? Something that's a little more extreme and has higher risk of going wrong, causing pain, causing trauma, being misunderstood. Something that's a little edgier. And you want to be able to give her that experience, but you really want to make sure that you do it having considered everything that goes into it, everything that could go wrong, and making sure that you're only giving to her the things that she really wants so that it can remain a fun and sexy and consensual experience instead of edging into the experience of being gently traumatized by your lover, which is exactly what we do not want. One of my Patreon members asked me how to set up a kidnapping and rough sex scene for his wife. She's already let him know that this is something that she's interested in. She wants to experience this, and he wants to make sure to do it correctly. And here's the advice that I gave him. Start with a dyad. A dyad is a structured communication exercise. In this case, you're going to be asking her the same question over and over and over again, and you're going to be writing down notes or using your phone to record the conversation so that you can refer back to it later. So the question that I suggested that he ask his wife is, tell me one thing about this fantasy. And after she gives her response, say thank you and ask her again. Tell me one thing about this fantasy. Tell me one thing about this fantasy. Tell me one thing about this fantasy. This is going to help her to get clear on what it is that she actually wants out of this fantasy. So her answers may be something like, well, in it, my hands are tied together. Or in it, I'm in an unfamiliar place. Or it starts in the bedroom. Or it starts in a car. Or there's a bag over my head. Whatever it is, the specifics, this is going to help her to take her fantasy from sort of the realm of imagination and start to bring it down into the realm of reality. This is going to clear her mind and allow her to articulate the things that excite her about this fantasy, and it's going to give you more specific information on how to create it to the degree that she wants it made. Secondly, research and learn from other people's experiences. Other people have walked so that you could run. Other folks have set up and enacted very similar fantasies. I mean, thousands of people done a kidnap and rough sex fantasy. So go and learn directly from them. Read their real life stories of what worked and what they would do differently next time. Pay specific attention to the unexpected challenges they faced. For example, if your kidnapping fantasy starts on the street and you just roll up, throw a bag over her head and throw her into the back of the van, you can probably expect that someone's gonna call the police. Something you should consider. Also, look into their safety protocols. Like, what did people learn about what safety protocols they should have put in place, or what did they put in place that worked especially well? Also, take note of what enhanced the fantasy for the person who had it and what potentially pulled them out of it. There are plenty of great BDSM and related community forums online. You can try Reddit, you can try FetLife. There are also books and guides from experts on what's known as consensual non-consent, or CNC play, and there are podcasts and interviews with people who have a lot of experience doing this. So do all of your research and use that not just to generate ideas for what you might include in this fantasy, but also to help you to not make the mistakes that other people before you have made. Make sure that you are really, really clear on boundaries, and not just hers, yours as well. You want to have a really nuanced conversation about what is on the table and what is off the table. What is too intense? What is the emotional tone that we want to create here? Is it fearful? Is it playful? Do we know that we're kind of in on the joke and so we're joking about it? Or is this like very serious? Also be really clear on any specific triggers like words or absolute no-go areas. For example, she doesn't want her anus touched at all under any circumstances with fingers, toy, cock, nothing, right? The more specific you can be on what is absolutely off the table, the more room you'll have to play with everything else that is on the table. Now, a couple other things that you may want to consider is setting up a yes, no, maybe list for kidnapping and rough sex. I actually just went to an AI chatbot that we all love and asked it to create one of these for me, and it did a great job. I'm not going to go through the entire list here because you can do that on your own time, but some of the things that it brought up were being physically carried or dragged. What kind of restraints, like handcuffs, rope, zip ties? Those all have very different feelings. What about gagging, undressing? What about blindfolds? What about verbal degradation? What about name calling? What about forced sex of all different kinds? How much resistance do we want to include? By the way, if you have ever had like a wrestling fantasy, you know that it can be very, very, very exhausting to wrestle your partner when they are fighting full back, like that can actually take everybody out of it, because it can be absolutely physically exhausting to the degree that it is no longer fun to have sex after that. What other things are okay in terms of, say, forced play or impact play, like slapping? What about spitting? What about choking? What about hair pulling? There's so much that could go into this kind of scene. A yes, no, maybe list is a great way to approach any sort of BDSM play, but it is especially a great way to approach something that is as high stakes and high risk and potentially high reward as making someone's kidnapping fantasy come true. Very important to have both a verbal safe word and a non-verbal safe signal. Again, because this is a consensual non-consent fantasy, she may want to have the freedom to be like, no, stop, don't, oh, please stop, right? But she doesn't actually mean stop, that's part of the fantasy. But if she says yellow, that means we need to pump the brakes. And if she says red, that means everything stops right now and we go immediately to aftercare. And the same is true for a symbol, because again, if she is gagged, if she's not able to communicate with her words, how is she going to let you know red? There are different ways of creating this. You can put a fist in the air, but again, if her hands are going to be tied and she's gagged, we need another symbol. It could be clapping, stomping. It depends on what you are going to do in that scene, but make sure that you have multiple ways, especially if she's going to be bound and gagged and different parts of her body are going to be restrained, that she can let you know that she needs for the action to stop. And as important as everything else that we've discussed here today, aftercare. After something that is intense, and it doesn't have to be as intense as kidnapping and rough sex. It could just be like, as intense as a spanking, as intense as sex itself can be. Sex can be very, very intense without any bells and whistles, right? So we want to have a plan in place for aftercare. How does she want the scene to end? How does she want to know that the scene is over and that we have transitioned into aftercare? What kind of loving verbal or physical reassurance does she need? Does she need cuddling? Does she need grounding touch? Depending on how long this fantasy is, like how long, you're going to be enacting this from start to finish, you probably want to have something on hand to eat, maybe a warm beverage to drink. And then what kind of emotional support does she need after the scene? Like affirmation, validation, she's so good, she did so good, it was so much fun for you. Or maybe she needs a little bit of time for process. And then not just for her, but you, as the person who's enacting the scene, definitely going to need aftercare as well. Your aftercare may look very different than hers, but often there's a ton of emotions and neurotransmitters and adrenaline that get going when you are acting as the top or the dominant in the scene, and you also can experience an emotional drop after all of that as well. So consider your own aftercare and your own needs in addition to hers, and have that conversation very clearly in advance of setting up the scene. And then finally, there are a lot of things to remember here, right? Things that are definite yeses and things that are definite nos. So make sure that you feel confident that you've got good handle of everything that you want to do. Run through the scene many, many times in your mind. Write it out for yourself. Make sure that you have rehearsed it. That is what is going to allow you to hold that frame, to play that role when you are actually in the scene with her. And it's what's going to make you feel safe to do the things that you are very clear that she wants done, and not do the things that she's been clear she doesn't want done. This is entirely possible. You are entirely capable of creating any kind of intense and high stakes fantasy that you both are into, and I hope that this guide will help. Remember that it can be applied to way more than just kidnapping and rough sex. This can be applied to any sort of fantasy scene that you want to create with a partner. I'm Caitlin B. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure that you are subscribed to this channel. We want to reach 1 million subscribers before the end of this year. I'll see you here next week.